one of my YouTubes that I think everyone should watch too is, just business about networking. It's something that if you're a small business, depending on the business, you will need to get out there so that your business, the name can spread. So people can be referred to you. And you need to know also, small businesses, you need to know that you need to know who your customer is. You got to know who your customer is. And through meeting people, you start to sift through the different people to get to your core group. Mm-hmm. And that happens in networking also. This is a great conversation.
Yes.
My name is Charliine. As you know, I'm Miss Charliine, and this is Lunch with the Finance Bunch, and I'm sitting with Cindy, and she has a business called Everyday Gourmet in LA that she started herself. She owns her own small business, and it's very successful. Lots of clients, lots of people that she's cooking for, preparing meals for, and doing wine tastings for. So if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
They could go on my website. It's everydaygourmetla.com. They can get some basic information about me and, things that, for instance, I'm self-serve, ServSafe certified, which is something that people want to know. I have
so what does that mean?
That's a certification that means that I'm knowledgeable in sanitation, in kitchens. I've worked in professional kitchens before I did this as experience, and I learned how all of that works, and you have to get certified to do that.
Okay.
So that's an important thing to know.
Definitely.
What my background is a little bit, and how and why I got into this, and so they can go on my website and do that, and they might meet me at a networking meeting, probably.
Right.
And I'm also, around the neighborhood. I mean, I really believe in talking to my neighborhood businesses. Any business that I think that would attract what my clients are, I would talk to the owner and make sure that they know who I am, and we refer each other back and forth. That's another thing that I think that could be valuable.
Right, is referring business back and forth to each other, mm-hmm. because everyone knows someone who does something that you need.
Absolutely.
And so in that, you become a part of that network, and they will refer people to you because of the need. Because really, cooking today is it's not, I wouldn't say a lost art, but the family sitting down at a meal together in the evening during the week is almost a lost cultural event. And it's unfortunate. So having people like you who keep that going makes it all the better. And I wanted to find out from you too. I have lots of questions.
Good. Bring them on.
Lots of questions. I also want to find out, what do you do for them? Do you have to, they go and buy their groceries, or do you buy the groceries for them? How does that whole thing work?
Right. Good question. So I offer two services as far as personal cooking. One is I can go into your home and cook in your kitchen.
Right.
And I generally do the grocery shopping for you. I do have some clients that prefer to do their own grocery shopping, and that's fine.
Me.
Many people don't, and I don't blame you. But typically I do the grocery shopping. The first thing that happens is I sit down with you and I make a menu.
Right.
My consultation is always free the first time I meet with you, and I sit down with the client and I figure out I ask you about 150 questions, but it really helps me figure out who this client is and what their needs are. What's a typical week like with food? Do you have food allergies? Do you have food limitations? Do you have, what are your likes and dislikes? If you don't like Brussels sprouts, I'm not going to make them. Right. So we need to talk about that. Where are you typically shopping? And I want to know how much people are spending on groceries, because I want to slash your grocery bill.
That's great.
My job also is to be the better shopper. Most of us do not make lists when we go shopping.
That's true.
We often impulse buy.
Especially if you're hungry.
Yes. So what I do is after I've made a menu with you and you've approved it, mm-hmm. Typically people do 4 to 5 dinners a week with me. When I make that menu, then you have your approval, I then get your grocery money and I go shopping. I only shop for the things that we talked about buying. So I'm not buying the chips on the aisle, and I'm not buying the chocolate, and I'm not, that's all great, but it's not.
It's not what you're doing.
It's not what you're doing.
Right.
So I only buy those ingredients that pertains to our menu list. I also look for ways to use those ingredients more than once. So if I'm buying chicken breasts for you, there are other recipes during the week that we can use that for.
Right.
typically, too, what happens is people buy spices and certain things for that meal, and then they don't use it again. And
Ever
it
again.
Sits
Yes.
on the shelf. So I look for ways to use those things again.
Right.
It's funny, I'll ask somebody, do you have, curry in your can? Oh, yeah, I bought that like 2 years ago.
Right.
And I don't know what to do with it. So we bring that out,
Right.
dust it off,
Right.
and use it. Things like that. I really try to keep, I try to get creative about different ways to use things. And every time I've worked with a client, I'm proud to say that I have slashed their grocery bill almost in half by doing that.
Well, I think that, we talked about this too. Oddly enough, sometimes you wind up either breaking even or actually saving by working with you because, like you said, the meals are focused. You're not all over the place shopping. And in addition to that, what you're making a healthier meal in most cases, and they're not eating out as much because eating out can be very expensive. So you're probably saving in that instance too, and you know what's going into the food. They see you prepare it, and even if they don't see you prepare it, they get to know you. It's not in some mystical kitchen somewhere, where they're getting 100 plates out at a time and, couldn't miss the fact that you are allergic to cheese. Like me, if I eat out 5 times, I send my food back at least twice, because if there was something that, like, I can't have cheese and I'm lactose intolerant, and so I'll order something and just ask them not to put the cheese on it, and it will come out, 3 out of 5 times right, but that other 2 times it'll be wrong. So I've resigned myself to not even ordering things that might have cheese on them, because people just don't, because you're doing this like an assembly line. If 100 people order the meal, 2 of them can't have cheese. So even though it says that right there, they still will put the cheese in because that's just what they do. So to have someone, and other allergies can be much more devastating because they're hidden things. Like some people are allergic to like nuts and things like that. So you have to be really careful. So I'm sure that in working with you, it's less that would happen.
Yes, very good point. Much less likely to happen with me. And I do ask that question several times during the conversation.
What are
because
your allergies?
People also don't, you really need to think about it. Even
Right.
if it's not an obvious allergy, sometimes we have sensitivities to things.
That's true.
I've had clients that ate mango a couple of times and it just wasn't doing them right.
Right.
And we're not sure if we're allergic to it. But you know what? I'm not going to give it to you.
Right.
I don't want that in your meal. So I really talk about that. I use the word sensitivity as well besides allergy.
Yes.
Because sometimes we are.
Just
And,
sensitive to certain things.
you don't need that in your diet. You don't
Right.
need that on your plate. So yeah. And it's much easier to control, like you said. When I'm cooking, I'm focused on your meal only.
Right.
I'm not cooking a bunch of meals at one time. I deliberately don't do that. And when I'm doing your account, I only do your meals, and I'm very focused on what those ingredients are and how you like them prepared. And we've talked about that as well, what the cooking method is.
Yes.
So I'm very focused on that, and I want to deliver a great product that's gonna be tasty and healthy. And that's what I pride myself on doing. So
I find that amazing. Now, we also talked about this, and I wanted to bring this up, is the cost. Because, like you said, people think, I have a personal chef. That in itself says, wow, it must cost a lot. So we don't need to discuss your specific pricing because it would, I'm sure, be determined by each person that you're working with and what ingredients you have to use, how hard it is, how many meals, all that. But would you say that it's cost effective to work with you?
Yes, absolutely. It's very cost effective. You're right in that we still have that thing with private chefs.
Right.
First of all, I'm not a private chef. I'm a cook.
Same thing
There's
to
a
me.
difference.
Well, tell us what the difference is,
Okay,
because
yeah. Let me clear that. Because private chefs are people that have generally gone to culinary school.
Okay.
And they are typically working in restaurants on the line in restaurants, which I have never aspired to be.
Yes.
But they go to school for that, and these are professional chefs. They're in big kitchens with doing a lot of dishes at one time.
Okay.
There are also private chefs that work for wealthy families. We still have that.
Right.
That are just exclusively hired to be a part of a staff for that family.
For that family.
I am a personal cook. I am not a chef. I'm self-trained. To give you an example, Rachel Ray is a personal cook. She's a cook.
Yes, she is.
She is not a chef. She
Yes.
has not been culinary trained. Barefoot Contessa is a cook.
Right.
There's lots of people, I could go through Food Network, but there's a lot of people that are cooks
Yes.
that are not chefs that have been, self-taught and just worked their way up through catering businesses and experience and all of that. I'm in that vein.
Okay, so that raises a great
Right.
point, because I don't want the audience to think because you are a personal cook and not a personal chef that the food quality would be any less, because who would say Rachel Ray? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Come on.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted just to make that clear, is that a person who, and the check is different too, because
Yes,
if it's
absolutely.
if they're a chef, I'm sure they're commanding one type of check. And if it's a personal cook, the check would be different, and not to lessen the impact of the meal, because I'm sure that the meal would be as tasty, but the check attached to the payment would not be as costly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and that's a really good point, because I really wanted this to be cost effective for people.
Right.
And I don't want people to go, the first time they hear
Right,
it.
like, oh,
I
can't
want
afford
it
to
to
eat
be
this.
right, and I want it to be approachable. I didn't want it to be like that. It is my living, and I certainly want to make a career and money out of it, but I don't want it to be that experience for people. I am very cost effective. If you go online and check out what even personal cooks are charging, I'm very reasonable.
Okay.
There is a hourly charge for my labor and time,
Of course.
but it's basically it's a really minimal fee in what the bigger picture looks like. And that with the charge of your groceries is really not a lot. Most people are gonna wind up spending that anyway.
Right.
You just don't know it. You're eating out and you're doing stuff all week long. And like you said earlier, it's very expensive to eat out now. Even at a casual restaurant,
That's
it's very
right.
expensive to eat out. So I am saving people money. It's very cost effective, and the food quality is the same. I have a lot of experience cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I can bring out some very pretty dishes to you if that's what you're looking for, and fan them out and make it look really pretty like a private chef. That's not what most of my clients want.
No, they want a really
Yeah.
tasty meal at home that they did not have to prepare, because most times they didn't have time to prepare
Right,
it.
right.
So, the need is there.
Right. And it's healthy. I mean, I'm not a dietitian by any means, but I do cook in a Mediterranean style, which means that I use a lot of good oils, good fats, olive oil, nuts, things like that are good for you. And a lot of my clients wind up actually losing weight by just eating this way.
Okay.
Most of the time, because you're not eating a lot of the bad fats.
Right.
And it's just making that change.
Yeah.
It's simply doing that. And so I do have, if that is an issue that you're trying to address, and I do have clients that want to lose weight, and or are getting married and have a crunch time, or something's going on like that. I just had a bride, actually. I can do that for you. I have a personal training background as well. Way back in the day, I was a personal trainer for 12 years.
Okay.
So I understand how bodies work and how they lose weight, and I have that knowledge. I can bring that to the table. But the crux of my business is really not about that. It's really about
Right.
just bringing a healthy, tasty meal to your kids and to your family. And even if you don't have kids, just for yourself.
For yourself, yeah.
Because you don't have time to do it. And you don't want, and we live in a different time too. I think it's
That's
okay
right.
to not want to cook.
And I like that you brought
Yeah.
that point up, because sometimes, I don't want to give the impression or have women think, or men think, that, not cooking is some type of deficiency on their part, because it really doesn't have anything to do with that. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether you like or don't like to cook. That's not a judgment call either. It's a matter of time and availability. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And most of us don't have the time and are not available to do that. So to have someone who is willing, experienced, and able, why not?
Right.
And why
Exactly.
not even explore it? Why not explore it? Sometimes we're so afraid, and you and I are going to get to fear in a second, but sometimes we're so afraid to even explore the possibility. So I would say to my listeners, check Cindy out. Check out her on her website, find out what her prices are. You'd be surprised how reasonable she is. And to have started this business with the idea, I want to spend time with my son, and be more available for my family. I think that's just great, because we don't necessarily get to do that, or we don't know that we have that available to us because we don't sometimes think past the paycheck that, we think is automatic through working for someone else. So I applaud you as a small business.
Thank you.
And your success is phenomenal, because people need what you have to offer. And it's definitely something that I myself think that more families should at least try, because you're right, it brings the family together. It gets everyone at the same time, at the same table, so that they can discuss the day's events or whatever they want to talk about. It gets them away from the video games and the television. And not that those things are bad, but everything in its time.
Right.
Right,
absolutely.
So I like it. You're getting the family back together.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think that's really important.
Yes, it is. And